He joined probably about a month ago. He was at 40 appointments a week and a half in.
How do you do that?
As soon as they answer the phone, you're like, hey, it's all of a sudden they're like, oh, you've got to get that initial trust in the beginning. So it's about combining the understanding and the expertise of one industry and then just plugging in the call center expertise, and you can build something quite cool. People think that they can just get away with having a caller and they're just going to magically phone everyone, and they're just like, they think it's like a very simple thing.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another interview. Honored to be joined again by the one, the only Arin Darcan, all the way in Essex, UK. Thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, for sure, man. Thanks for having me. I'm super pumped. It was great last time. I'm excited to be here again.
Yeah. So for those who didn't see the last episode, Arin used to run an agency, and now he runs a follow-up team that does done-for-you follow-up for brands like Gym Launch and a few other private clients. And then he also trains agency owners how to add follow-up services to their existing offer in a way that doesn't suck. So
love that.
Before we get into today's episode, I'm super excited to share with you a little bit about one of our sponsors on the podcast today, Riverside. If you are a content creator or a podcaster and you're tired of your recordings with guests who sound like they're speaking with you through a tin can, then Riverside is for you. We've all been there. You're ready to do the interview. You've got your questions ready. Your guest is all set to go, and then your internet connection is unstable, message ruins the entire recording. With Riverside, you can get rid of those internet issues and choppy audio and have clean sounding recordings effortlessly. You see, the interesting thing about Riverside is that they record each part of the episode locally on that person's device, and then they upload it to the cloud, so you make sure not to miss anything, even if it's the other person's fault. And by the way, this episode was actually recorded on Riverside, so you can see the quality firsthand. But that's not all. Riverside's amazingly user-friendly interface is super easy to use, which allows you to spend less time troubleshooting technical difficulties and editing your podcast, and instead spend more time speaking with amazing guests and getting recognized for your valuable content. It can be used for podcasts, video interviews, video marketing, panel discussions, talking head presentations, and live broadcasting. And not only does it just record all of those things, it has a ton of other built-in features that make it a no-brainer for podcasting and video. Things like AI transcriptions, editing a video by removing text, AI clips, captions, and an awesome short-form video editor built right in. And they even recently came out with a feature that auto edits the long silences out of your podcast to the perfect length. It really is your all-in-one online video and podcast studio. And if you need more convincing, Gary Vee, Guy Raz, and Ali Abdaal all use Riverside for their content and podcasts. But the very best part is that I've teamed up with them to get you guys 50% off any plan. And to get that discount, all you have to do is click the link below and enter the code It's Keaton at checkout. Thanks so much, Riverside, for sponsoring this episode. And with that said, let's get started. That's maybe the best way I can describe it. And he coaches both with Charlie Morgan and Joel Kaplan in their respective programs. So he's very well respected in the industry and knows exactly what he's talking about. Arin, thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, I appreciate having me, and you did a great introduction as well. I love that. Like you said it better than I can say it, so that's awesome. Thank you.
I just realized I welcomed you on twice, so whatever. Double welcome.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good.
So tell us, for those that weren't here last time, what was the agency you ran previous to this, and then give us an update on the last year or so. Why did you? Because previously you were trying to find more kind of white label clients, so to speak, where they like the agency comes to you and you, for $500 a month, follow up with every single account that they have, but you've more switched to the coaching model. So talk to us about that.
Yeah, man, for sure.
Also where this journey all started.
Yeah, exactly. So I used to run a lead gen agency, typical thing, SMMA, how it usually is. I started the biggest problem I found was that my clients weren't following up with their leads when they should be, and they were blaming us. It was just an absolute pain in the ass. So I ended up building out my own call center to handle that. And then it was really successful. A lot of my clients, agency colleagues, so people in the agency space who I was friends with, often asked like, oh, how are you getting so many appointments for your clients? What are you doing differently? Tell them about the call center. And none of them wanted to build it in-house. They were just like, look, can you just do the call center for me or something? And I was like, bit of a weird offer. It's not really out there, but I essentially built a white label call center, right? So if agencies wanted to offer the follow-up to their clients, but they didn't want to build the in-house, they could come to me. And then did that for about 2.5 years. Like you said, I've still got that company. We still work with some big clients like Gym Launch and some other ones. But honestly, what ended up happening was that so many of my clients, they did a great job in the beginning stages. and they just wanted to build it in-house. They wanted to like transition to selling their company at some point in the future, or also just like what you got to remember is that my setters can't become an expert in one particular field, right? They're either one day they're talking to a gym, the next day they're talking to a med spa, then talking to a car. So they really lack that depth of the conversation to be able to get deposits, things like that. And so ultimately, I kind of just realized that if I was to show agency owners, look, this is exactly what I built out for all these other companies. Here's a step-by-step blueprint, literally like video program, everything copy, templatized, if that's a word, all plugged in, and it's good to go. Then, and honestly, the results that clients are getting are just way better than what we did even with Team Follow-Up. Team Follow-Up was already pretty good, but now clients are coming through the course of the mastery and they're doing it themselves. Obviously, it's more work up front. It's not like an easier solution. It's definitely more work up front for it all. However, once you get to that threshold and you've done the work, everything's just been so much better.
Yeah, that's great. What strikes me is like you're able to, what is it like between 5 and 10 clients you have done for your clients you have right now with, hundreds of accounts on some of those?
Yeah. So basically all the clients I have now are pretty much enterprise level. They're all spending a decent amount. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it's cool that you're able to go deep with those. Obviously that's great income. Like you don't need or probably want to go much better with enterprise level clients on the done for you side. The complexity there doesn't scale super well. So being able to train people to go like take their industry expertise and just bolt on your expertise there, that's great.
That is exactly it. And if I was to bring on more enterprise clients now, it would just be a lot of me exchanging my own time. Like because I would have, it's not to sound big headed, but it's quite a high level thing to be able to build this all out and get it all perfect. And so unless I'm spending my own time, like literally a lot of time every day work. So when I signed up the Gym Launch account, for example, that was an account which I was like, right, I'm gonna put a lot of effort into. So I probably worked literally part time for them, like it's in like 4 or 5 hours a day just on their stuff for the first couple of months, just to make sure we can get it right. And if you're an agency owner though, and you are investing full time into your business, then if I can take the knowledge I have and then give you that kind of spark, then you can do the same thing you did with Gym Launch, right? Like you've got the expertise, you understand it all. You don't have to get someone else to come do it for you. So it's about combining, like you said, the understanding and the expertise of one industry, and then just plug in the call center expertise and understanding, and then bam, you can build something quite cool.
It's so cool. So give us like a success story from the last year where you saw someone without these services implement them, and then what happened to retention, to sales, like anything.
Yeah, for sure, man. To be honest with you, most of my clients are really bad at tracking actual retention, right? Like, because I would actually challenge every agency owner that's watching this, right? Like, what's your retention? Like, no, in the last 30 days, what's your retention? Most people are like, oh, I think it's like, no one's really tracked this stuff. So it's kind of, and so it's even harder for me to get it from them. So I'd love to be able to speak specific numbers, but in general, it's like, there's a guy called Cam. It's so funny. A lot of the people that I sign up, when I first speak to them about this, they're like, my call center's doing all right. It's not a big deal, blah, blah. And only after doing so much follow up with them, they're like, all right, cool. I'll buy it. I'll get involved in it. Or they have like a really bad week with like the call center and they hit me up. Hey man, can I get involved?
Yeah.
And literally every single time that's happened, people come in and I've got a bunch of testimonials people can watch. It's literally like transforms their entire agency in the sense of people think that they can just get away with having a caller and they're just going to magically phone everyone. And they're just like, they think it's like a very simple thing. Only when they do it, they realize how complicated it is. And so once you plug in our systems and everything we have, people were literally saying it's like the best investment they've ever made. They're getting, I had one guy that 5x the number of appointments he was getting.
Wow.
That was Pasha. I'll name drop as well. Like Cam England was the one that said, it's the best investment he made. Pasha, Ramadash, his name is, he 5x. Faisal, there's a guy called Faisal Mangal. He joined probably about a month ago and he's already breaking company records. The number of, I think it was, normally he'd get like 40 appointments, a month for one of his clients, and he's at 40 appointments. He was at 40 appointments like a week and a half in to the month, right? So it's just stuff like that. Like it's just been, don't want to rant, but like it's magical what happens when you actually have someone that phones leads within 5 minutes and continuously follows up afterwards. It's a very simple process. There's nothing crazy that I'm trying to there's no black magic that I'm doing. It's everyone knows what they need to do. It's just how do you enforce your VAs or your team or whoever it is to actually do what they're supposed to do. That's like the most difficult part.
Yeah. So a couple things that strike me from that. We were talking at the UK event that we both spoke at, and you were saying how some of these enterprise clients are like, they'll entertain other call centers and they'll be like, oh, we're going to test them out on a few accounts. And, and then a few months later, or not even a few weeks later, they're like, oh, like we're going back to team follow up.
Yeah, haven't a
Right.
few times. Haven't a few times.
Um, so I'll come back to that in just a second. Hey guys, just jumping in here to give you a quick word on our sponsor GoHighLevel before we get back to the interview. If you don't know already, GoHighLevel is the top sales and marketing solution for any business, but particularly agency owners or anybody that needs a software product to resell to their existing customer base. It has everything you need to capture, nurture, and close leads for marketing clients. And the best part is GoHighLevel believes in not taxing the agencies on its platform, so you can get unlimited clients for one low flat monthly fee. The best features include a CRM, funnel, website and email builders, course hosting platform, robust marketing automation builder, a consolidated chat stream with WhatsApp, email, SMS, Instagram DMs, and Facebook DMs, reputation management, social media posting, tracking and analytics, and so much more. And as if that wasn't enough, GoHighLevel is fully white labeled, meaning that you can take the platform and put your own brand on the desktop and mobile app and resell it to your industry for whatever price you want. Essentially, what GoHighLevel has done is brought the bar for starting a software company way lower, so normal people like you and I can help our clients with an amazingly robust software without paying hundreds of thousands of dollars in development costs. I am not kidding when I say hands down, GoHighLevel is my favorite software of all time. It has been integral to my success with my agency. It helped me increase my clients' results and retention, and I use it every single day for my own business. And if you sign up for GoHighLevel today, not only will you get a 30-day free trial, which is not available on their website, but you'll get all of the bonuses listed at itskeaton.com/mastermind, which gets you support, templates, and courses to kickstart your GoHighLevel journey and get those first few clients or scale to your next few clients. If you're already a GoHighLevel customer, you can also get all of those bonuses by upgrading to the next highest plan underneath my link. Instructions for that are also at itskeaton.com/mastermind. What are most of these people coming to you? Like they're using another white label call center, or they're trying to build it out themselves?
It's great question, man. What's the normal kind of pain? It's usually they try to build it. They know they should have a call center, right? And or their clients are complaining that they're not getting enough appointments. So they're like in their head, they're like, you know what? I'm gonna hire an appointment setter and I'm gonna book the appointments for them. I'm just gonna do it for them.
Yeah.
And then they hire this setter, and it's like. It's like that they dig under, like the surface is like clean at the moment, right?
Yeah.
And there's this little hole, and they kind of like dig through, and they kind of open this hole up, and all of a sudden there's like this huge issue, like, and they're like, oh, what have I uncovered? Because like now they've got the VA doing it, and there's always like cascade of problems now. So that's a lot of it. That's what it is. It's people that have tried to build it out themselves. They know they need one because that's where the market's moving, and they're just like, I don't know what. Like I keep trying to fix this, I keep trying to fix that. I'm trying to do this, and they're trying to like juggle all these things, and just becomes a mess. And in the end, they're just like they just admit defeat, and they're like, Arin, please just like show me what I need to do and just fix my call center for me.
And would you say a lot of that is people just hiring people without enough experience? And
it's not even hiring enough people without the experience. It's more about the fact that they're hiring someone and putting them in I don't know, let's say like I'm trying to think of like a full Fiesta. You guys have full Fiestas in the US, right? Right. So imagine you're going around a Formula One racetrack, and you're like, I've hired someone that's great, and you put them in a full Fiesta, and then when they go out driving around really slowly, you're like, this guy's so bad. Why is he driving so slowly? What's he doing? It's like, dude, because you put him in a full Fiesta. So you need to have the proper systems. Like there's so much to it. I can't really go for it now, but like you need to give them the actual, because like this is the thing with my setters. We hire people from all over the world, and we have quite a strict interview process and that kind of stuff. But then once they're in, we have the Formula One race car sitting there for them to sit in, and all of a sudden they're driving around hundreds of miles an hour, and there's no problems.
Yeah. Okay. I'm excited to dive into more of what you can share as far as like what those systems are.
Yeah, for sure.
But I wanted to note that I know this data is really hard to get because agency owners don't track it. They don't give it to you. Clients don't do it either. But for me, when I sold my agency, for people that don't know my story, I had my agency Then we added follow-up services for like 2.5, 3 years before we sold. And our retention went from like 4 months to 10 months after adding the follow-up services on average. And that was continuing to climb as, there's certain clients that like, it doesn't matter what you do, they're going to churn. But the clients who like the system crushed for them, that was continuing to extend our average lifetime past that 10 months because we had people staying with us for 2, 3, 4 years because of the systems that we were able to implement. And I wish I knew about Arin before then, because I'm sure we could have done it. The biggest regret I have with my call center is the margins were just kind of like a big struggle. I tried my best to like really keep that as low as possible, but because we took so much on, like I feel like the scope that we decided to take on with clients was a little bit too big. And I from what I know about your process, like you're really hardcore on what you do and don't do for the client and why you do and don't do that. So excited to talk about that as well. Yeah. So where I'd like to start is, let's say I'm that agency owner that you just described. I've tried to hire someone, but I'm putting them into a Ford Fiesta. What are like the first 2 to 3 changes that you make that get, I don't know, 50, 60, 70% of the results?
Yeah, great question. The first one is speed to lead. That's the thing that gets, honestly, like so many people underestimate it. Speed to lead is the thing. So I'd make sure that you have it set up so when a new lead's generated, that is pinging your appointment setter, it's putting it in a Slack channel. There's some accountability involved in there as well. So it's like if the lead isn't being phoned within a certain time period, that they're having to tag you and tell you about it and things like some sort of accountability. So, and some kind of way for them to actually know that as soon as a lead comes in, they've got to phone them. They've got to be told of that. Yeah. Don't rely on the setter just to sit in a GoHighLevel account or when, and these other things. Well, quick sign, it's the expectations, right? If you tell your setter, hey man, new leads are going to come in, keep an eye on them, call them as soon as you can, do your best, right? That's like the worst expectations. That's the worst, like, telling them it's worst instructions ever. So what works better is, hey, leads, when they come in, they're going to come straight into this chat, into this Slack channel, for example, right? As soon as they come in, I want you to make a note of it. Like I want you to write something in the thread of that message, so I know that you've seen it, right? Then once you've called the lead and you've had a conversation with them, I want you to briefly write what happened in that conversation. For any reason, this lead takes longer than 5 minutes. For any reason, doesn't matter, even if it's like a computer, it doesn't matter what it is. I want you to just tag me as, hey man, this took longer than 5 minutes because, and just give me the reason. And that way, then I'm able to, when I start seeing leads that aren't being phoned up within 5 minutes, I've got a few different timestamps for me to be able to look back on and see where the problems were. And also, them having to tag you with the 5 minute thing, if it takes longer than 5 minutes, keeps them accountable. And make sure that they're not going to be slacking and just missing things for no reason, because you're going to be investigating it every time there's a problem. Yeah. It takes longer than 5 minutes. Very Stuff cool. like
that. Okay, so then what about after hours stuff? And what if, I feel like a big problem I had was figuring out how many setters I needed for how many accounts. And we didn't track speed to lead. I believe our like average was like 40 minutes, which obviously is not as good as 5 minutes. Arin's just shaking his head at me like, how do you?
Yeah, I'm just like, you're not. My heart is like, oh, like don't be rude. Just
we can't all be perfect like you. I guess we can if we buy call center mastery, but anyway, yeah. I was always like, okay, I need to stay sane. I need to stay profitable. How do I know how many people to hire? And especially when I'm like testing this out, do you test with one setter or do you get two? And how do you handle the after hours question?
Yep. So I would start with one setter to begin with. A lot of people have like one setter and they're like, hey, Arin, I want to be phoning leads between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m., but I've only got one setter. What should I do? And it's like, well, you need to hire more setters. Like, there's no, like, some people think there's like some magical shortcut you can do with like one person. It's like, you get to a point where if you've got one set, I'll definitely start with one setter. And what I do is I'll be looking at, okay, what times do most of the leads come in? Maybe it's like between the hours of, I don't know, 9 and 1 p.m. And then maybe over a lunch, there's not as many. Then maybe like between 3 and 6 or something. I'd be looking at that and I'd be just optimizing the best you can with one setter to begin with, right? Anything that comes outside of them hours, I would have some sort of AI bot, right? So the AI calling, I spoke to a guy today who did some cool stuff. It's getting close, but it's still not there yet. So, but the AI texting is 100% there. That's incredible, the AI texting. So I'd make sure that I'd have a bot that's working all hours anyway, but then I'd make sure that within the hours where we're not calling, so for example, like the after hours in the middle of the night, I'd send them a text that's something like, hey, I'm not going to call you because it's quite late now, ha ha. But look, I can text you for a little while. Is there any questions you've got? And just let the bot like communicate with them and just let them know that you're going to phone them first thing in the morning once they're back up. And even if they're like, oh, no, it's right, you can call me now. You can just be like, oh, no, it's all good. Like we have a rule. We can't phone outside of hours because of certain requirements and rules, blah, blah. You can do stuff like that.
Very cool. And that you guys are using CloseBot for the majority of your accounts, right? For those bots.
Yeah, exactly. I'll tell you what we can even do for people, Keaton, is like I can actually get people 20% off of CloseBot. I've got a relationship with the founder through my call center mastery stuff. Nice. So we can put like a code down below for people to get some money off that as well if people are interested.
Sweet. Very cool. Yeah. I was just talking to Bryce the other day and I got a 300 off. We'll put both, and if you want, obviously, way better. Do 300 off if you want to try it, and 20% off for life if you want to do Arin's. But
or maybe we can speak to Bryce and see if we can get like a combined one.
Yeah, that'd be crazy.
Get some. Yeah, we'll speak to Bryce.
We will put on the screen what happened now.
Exactly.
I'm going to bring him on the podcast soon, so maybe I'll ask him.
Yeah, he's great. I like Bryce.
So what tips you have for those trying to figure out CloseBot for the first time? Because what you just described, like that level of like humanness from the bot is tough to achieve from what I can tell for first timers. What advice do you have to make it sound as human as possible?
It's really just a lot of it's just trial and error. It's like you've got to run it and you've just got to see where the holes are. And the prompts are obviously everything. Like, right, you got to get obviously you got to use ChatGPT 4. Don't try 3.5 or 3. Like that just doesn't work. ChatGPT 4. Then you've got the prompts on top of that, and with the prompts on top of that, you've got to make sure that when you're using it. And this is the thing. Like Bryce is doing an amazing job. He's bringing out CloseBot 2 very soon, I believe. It's scheduled this summer, I think. Don't quote me on that. And CloseBot 2 will allow even more insane stuff like if-else statements within CloseBot, things like that. But for now, the great thing about CloseBot is that you get the individual prompts for each objective that you're trying to achieve. So each qualifier you're trying to get through, right? So if you're using, I'm not going to mention any other ones because I don't want to, don't put people down or anything. But if you use other bots that I know of, they have like one big prompt, right? And so you've got to try and get maybe 4 or 5 qualifying questions from one big prompt. And the bot, it just gets really messy very quickly. So short prompts, incline CloseBot, and then just run it through and see what kind of responses you're getting back and just constantly tweaking. It's literally like having like dials on like a nuclear reactor and just like, trying to get it perfect.
Yeah, I saw something Bryce posted the other day. I'll put it on the screen now, but it's like this. When you hear about AI, like first of all, you're hyped. You're like, this is amazing. It's going to be so cool. And then you implement it for the first time and you're like the trough of despair. And then eventually, I can't remember what it's called. It's like the plateau of productivity or something like that.
Yeah, that is exactly it. Like when you first get like, this is incredible. And then when you actually start trying to build it, you're like, oh my God, what the hell is it? Why is it not working? And you think it's like trash, right? And it's funny.
So, okay, AI bot for after hours. You start with one setter and you just try to get them to work during the times that you see the most leads are coming in.
Yeah, exactly. Don't worry about weekends. Again, actually, it depends what niche you're in. Maybe weekends are great for you. I would just try to start mapping out when the leads are coming in.
And how do you do that mapping of when the leads come out? Is there an easy way to do that in HighLevel, or do you like zap something to a sheet?
Yeah, there's no way to do it easy and HighLevel. What I would do is zap it into a Google sheet and then the Google sheet. And then if you just have a timestamp for every single time a new lead created, after 2 weeks, you're going to have all this data and you should be able to map it out in Google Sheets and see like where the best times are.
Yeah, it's just these small things. Like I never would have thought to do that, but I could give my setters a much better work-life balance and, just be like, hey, you're off for 2 hours in the middle of the day, go do whatever you want, just make sure you're back by this time. And then have a lighter, maybe people who want to work for just a couple hours a day during that time.
Yep. Yep. And remember, you also got the power dialer stuff in there. So what we're talking about here is the speed to lead, right? But then beyond that is if you try to phone someone today and they don't answer, well, then later in the afternoon or tomorrow, whenever you want to do it, you've got to be consistently following up with them. So even if you're seeing that you've got a bunch of leads coming through between 9 and 12, well, make sure you don't just tell your ISA, hey, like don't work at 1 till 3, because you still need someone to phone up them leads that didn't answer the phone, right? So just keep that in mind as well.
Yeah. Okay. And how are you able to keep yourself profitable at 500 an account for your enterprise level clients? Like, how much are you paying typically? Where are you finding setters? And talk about the boundaries that you've built, where what you will and won't do for a client. And because I really think that's where a lot of people are going to fall down here. Being like, a client asks, can you do this? And then either they don't charge more, or they just say yes because they want to try it out. Then they end up saying yes to everybody. And then they have this like behemoth that they've built that maybe doesn't have the right systems, and they're barely profitable on it. So would love to hear your thoughts on all of those.
Yeah. So in terms of what we pay them, we do $5 an hour, and that works pretty much universally across all of my team. We find them in places like the Philippines, Dominican Republic. We have got some people in the USA. We pay them $12 an hour in the USA. And yeah, like Ethiopia, all over the world. There's no great, best or worst countries. They're literally all over the world. We've got a really cool hiring funnel on LinkedIn, which works very, very well. We have a bunch of applicants for a very low cost as well. So we've obviously, where we are constantly hiring for new projects for companies like Gym Launch and other enterprise clients, we need to make sure we have a constant funnel of new hires coming in, which is working really well. In terms of, you were asking about what you're asking about?
The boundaries that you put.
Boundaries. There was something about how I stay profitable as well. Yeah. In terms of profitability, so what we do is we use HubStuff. Again, I can give you kind of some discounts over HubStuff. And so what we do with HubStuff is that we are tracking every single one of our clients. They have a separate project in HubStuff. And so every time they're phoning for a certain client, they put on their particular project. So when it comes to the speed to lead stuff, they're just like a generic project called that speed to lead, which the team use, right? Because you can't jump between HubStuff projects constantly for that. But then when it comes to the power dialer and phoning up the leads afterwards, that's when we have a separate project for each client. And then what we do is every week we take the time we spent on every single project, and then we put in the amount of money that each of them clients are paying on a weekly basis. And then we can very easily start to identify which ones are most profitable, which ones aren't most profitable. From there, it's just about adjusting, right? If you see you've got one client that's going absolutely crazy, you need to work out, is it a case where maybe your team are just spending too long on a certain account, maybe there's a problem with it, or it could be you're just absolutely smashing leads for that client. And then you've got to make the decision on, okay, well, I'm making maybe this much profit margin across the entire service. Maybe the call center part I'm losing money on, but the ads are making way more money on because the ad spend's going up. Stuff like that you've got to kind of work out as well. And in terms of boundaries as well, so this is a thing. Clients always want more, right? Like when you first start doing leads for clients, they're like, "Oh, this is great, this is amazing, thank you so much," and then they want you to start following up with the leads for them. Okay, great. I'll build up the call center, I'll do the follow up. Then it's like, well, can you handle my inbound calls as well? Can you handle? Oh, if someone phones me up and they're an existing client, can you speak to them? And all of a sudden, you become a virtual receptionist, right? And then it's just like it never ends. So what we do is we have a very clear expectation setting document before we sign anyone up, right? And we'll go through with them on the call with them. And essentially, it's got things like voice recordings on it, right? For live calls of clients. That way, then they can hear any accents. They can hear that. That's the other thing as well, is that clients are going to expect you to do the same job as they can on a call, right? Which you're never going to be able to do. They're the client. They're always going to outperform you on the call. But the thing is, they're not going to be able to do is beat you on the speed to lead, and they're not going to want to keep following up the leads consistently after they come in. And so it's a huge waste of time for them. So although you may do a worse job on the actual calls, you're still going to get them more booked appointments and more shows just because you're going to do a better job of, that kind of stuff. So having expectations documents really clear, just making it clear, hey, look, we're not a virtual receptionist. We're only following up with the leads that we generate for you. And the thing about it as well is something that I did learn from Gym Launch is that people need to be reminded. Clients need to be reminded all the time. You might say something on the sales call and you go through the expectations, but you've got to. People need to be reminded more than anything else. So you just got to remind them of the same thing over and over.
So how are you typically getting the lead, the booked appointment to the client? Do you ever do warm transfers, or is it all booked through calendars?
Yeah, so we usually set them up inside GoHighLevel. So we set up the Google Calendar inside GoHighLevel, and then we'd have the ISA use the public GoHighLevel URL and just put people directly in. And then if let's say the client's also got their own Cairo software they use, like I don't know, whatever it is, then we just book into that using the public URL as well. So sometimes you have got to book into two different calendars. And then when it comes to live transfers, that's just simply just live transferring them. Honestly, live transfers are the best. I prefer them because the client, there's no such thing as a show up rate, right? Like if you successfully live transfer someone, that's it, they're there. And so if you're working with like lawyers and things, I think live transfers are the best.
Yeah, that's true on the lawyer side for sure. On the public URL thing, this is an example of why Arin's a genius and everybody else is like beneath him in this world, because it's more clicks to book inside of HighLevel on the back end than it is to book on the public URL. And so he just thought, why do I keep my people inside the more clicks environment? I can cut down on 3 clicks just having them go to the public URL. It's also easier because you can just save that URL for the client inside of whatever software you're using for, management or tracking.
And it's also less mistakes as well, man. Like if you let the ISAs book directly in the software, they can click, you've got like custom options, right? So when you click the custom option, if you click that accidentally, all of a sudden everything's open all the time. Things like time zones. So another really nice thing that I do is inside the GoHighLevel account, I'll disable the contact time zone, right? If it's a local gym, if it's not gym always, but like if it's a local med spa, Cairo, whatever it is, right? That way then it forces the ISA to only book within the actual time zone of the local thing, your local place you're booking into. And so it's all these little things like that. If you let them book in themselves, they have to click on the contact, they have to go here, they have to, it's a mess.
Yeah. So what about for example, a chiropractor that doesn't have an online scheduler and you can't book in that software with a link?
Yeah. So you're saying in the situation where the chiropractor uses like an offline software or like something where it hasn't got a public URL and it's like some some of them do have that. In that situation, honestly the best bet is just to book the appointment in GoHighLevel, make sure all the reminders are going out from GoHighLevel, then also have an email and a text that automatically gets sent to like their receptionist or someone and just says, hey, this appointment's been booked in, please make sure you book it in your own software. And then maybe you'd even want to have a reminder sequence for that. And then only once they reply to the email, like, yep, all booked in, then it will remove them from the reminder sequence. But until they put, yep, all booked in. And I'd even go as far as saying that after maybe like 2 days or even 24 hours, if you haven't received an email from the receptionist confirming they've booked it in, it notifies you to then speak to the client and be like, hey, look, your receptionist hasn't done this yet. Like, can you please tell them to do it? And then just like remind them of the importance of it.
Got it. And for those clients who might have appointment reminders coming from their own software, do you just tell them to disable those on their end because everything's going to be coming from HighLevel?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Exactly. Because most of your clients' reminders, they're not very smart. And they're like, it'll just be like automatic reminder. Yeah. Please remember that you have an appointment tomorrow at 4 p.m. Like, it's just like there's no substance there. There's no human element. It's not a great reminder. So yeah.
Okay. I love that. And I want to get into your no-show checklist as well, because that I think has been updated with maybe some of the AI stuff. And I mean, likely your reminder sequences are still automations and not AI, but I think your take on that is really cool. One other question I wanted to ask is point I wanted to make. So what we did is if the client didn't have the public URL, first of all, we never asked if the client had the public URL, which we should have. Sometimes that was like the only thing they had. I can think of one client, and that was like the easiest account. And I don't know why it didn't occur to me to be like, everyone for this public URL.
Yeah, otherwise you got to deal with the logins. It's like, oh, what logins for this? Oh, it's a mess. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you have to like deal with the territorial front desk staff that's like, no, nobody can be in this software. They're going to mess everything up. You got to get HIPAA compliance. You got to do a million other things. So if you can get the public URL, get the public URL, because what we would do is get remote access a lot of times to the software via like Log Me In or TeamViewer or something like that. And they'd have to have like I have a computer. I don't know if you can see it right down here. My team logs in to that through a remote viewing software, and they'd have that.
So they're on the phone with someone, and they're like on the phone with a lead, like trying to book them in like, for a team.
Yeah, they're switching between. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And sometimes they like refuse to buy an extra laptop or something for it, and so it was like, oh, somebody else is on the computer. I have to come back in 3 hours. Book it in. I know you're so disappointed in me right now. You used to respect me,
dude. How did you? I'm impressed that you did so well. Like,
oh, that's hilarious. Okay, so I'd love to get your take on this. As far as accents go, I've heard that kind of love my Filipino friends, but the some of the like cultural nuances on it's not a cold call, but a call can get lost in certain areas of the world, Philippines being one of them. Has that been your experience? This is coming from someone that I know ran a live transfer model. And he said Latin America is better. He said Eastern Europe is better. Have you experienced that with accents? And where's your favorite place to hire from?
So just to clarify, right? So the accent doesn't impact the cultural, like how they understand the culture of the country they're in, right? The Filipino, I've never had a problem with any of like the Filipino accent, the Latin America. Like I've never tried Eastern Europe, to be honest with you. Not mainly because of time zone. We usually work with the US, so it works better time zone wise. But the Philippines is great. Like I've never had a problem with them, but they definitely do miss out on like little jokes or like little like these like kind of like you said the cultural nuances. I think you called it things like that. It's like they definitely miss out on that. But then it just comes down to like what price are you willing to pay for this? Okay, so put it this way: Gym Launch at one point were asking about following up with their like B2B leads, like things like no, not just their B2C, but the B2B as well, things like that. And I straight up refused it because with my team, they are not. You're better off hiring a US setting team when you're dealing with a mastermind membership that's like 40 grand a year. Or I don't know how much I charge, whatever it is, right? And so you don't want to be in a situation where, like, for example, personal injury law, right? If you are dealing with appointments for life transfers and each of them cases could be worth $100,000, then yeah, having a US team that can, even if it's that 10% improvement, it's worth it, right? However, if you're dealing with gyms or like a chiro's doing a special, like a $60 special, then you're not going to get by paying triple the amount for the setter, you're not going to get that value back because it's just because you're not selling a high enough service. Does that make sense? So that's the main thing I'd say. But yeah, the cultural thing definitely is. But again, it's like your team get used to it. Like they start to get familiar with this kind of thing. If you've just got someone that's in the Philippines that has never, maybe they've only worked in a bank before, they've never really done call center stuff, then it's obviously way harder. But if you've got someone that's been doing cold calling or some sort of calling for places in America, they pick up the culture pretty quickly.
Yeah. And I think that for anyone that's listening, like if you haven't made a ton of hires ever, like whether or not they're overseas, you tend to be less aware of the things that you need to be qualifying for. And if you qualify for some experience, places that are popular work from home, like work online for American companies, areas like the Philippines. I've spoken to my video editor who is like amazing and has been working to get a very consistent, good job like he has with me for a very, very long time. And he said the culture tends to be like get rich quick. Like imagine the get rich quick SMMA gurus in the US. It's the get rich quick with working online for an American company in the Philippines. And so a lot of people will apply. They'll try to get a $10 an hour position or whatever, and that's literally like 10x their income. It's crazy, but they get in over their heads and they don't actually know what they're doing. And just vetting for some experience in that case will weed out
100%.
most of those people.
I would go as well saying that the Filipinos, they work hard. Like my team from the Philippines, they work like they. I think it's crazy how much they work. Like they are really great, really hard work. If you find the right people, right, they're really great. And that's the other benefit to using people from like the Philippines rather than the US. It's not just the accents and their culture. It's like the Americans are just, to be real, they're just, like people in the West are just lazier. They're lazier. They're less dependable. They're more entitled. They think they should just like be given money for no reason. Like where the people in the Philippines, they're like, they understand like, hey, I'm here to work and I'm going to work and I'm going to make money, and they are hard working. And it also does come down to filtering applicants, obviously on the front end when you interview them, when you hire them. But you also want to make sure you've got a solid hiring process, like a whole onboarding process. If you bring someone into the company and you're just like, hey, just get started, here's some calls, whatever, like it's never going to work. You got to make sure you have again, it comes down to that Formula One versus the full Fiesta, right? You got to make sure you have a solid onboarding, good training, lots of support. Then you can really get the best out of people.
Yeah. What would you say to someone that, like a client, obviously you wouldn't be dealing with this level of client, but somebody comes in there like, I want to meet the person who's going to be calling my leads. Do you allow them to get on a call?
No, not at all. It just the person's just not going to be. It's too messy at scale.
Yeah.
It's just too like, oh, if everyone starts wanting this, then what? Like you're going to do it for everyone? Like it's just one of the things. It's like if you don't, it's one of the expectations. It's like, no, we're not doing that for you. If that is a deal breaker, then no worries, man. Go find your own VA. You don't have to we'll generate the leads for you. Obviously, if you're an agency, we'll generate the leads for you. You can find your own setter if you like, and very quickly, I'm sure they'll be like, "Hey, can we just use your ones?" Because it's a pain in the ass.
Yeah. So important to, that's another boundary. Like, hey, what are you actually hiring me to do? You're not hiring me to like become a member of your team. We're an extension of your team in a way, but like maintaining that boundary will make them less needy over time and less likely to ask for things like that again.
Yeah. Exactly.
Follow-up question to that. I had a client once who was like, we really want to meet them, like walk them through our office, let them know what makes us different, make them, all this, which, like, to be fair, I'm like, it makes sense. I get it. And we sort of stepped into this problem ourselves because we were like, they're 100% US based. They used to work in dental. Like, you get to meet them. We told them that, and they wanted to do this extra thing. But yeah, for a client that's more, I don't know, touchy-feely, if that's what we want to call it, and wants this person who's going to be calling their leads to understand why their office is so great. Is there anything in the script that you put with the client? Is there anything that you talk about beforehand to talk up the business and help with shows, and also the client feeling more comfortable with how it goes?
Yeah, I think that there isn't anything, but this is the thing as well, is like, I don't like to have one setter for one client. We like to have a round robin approach where we have like 5 setters with maybe 30 clients and they all round robin. And don't get me wrong, we will try and put the same people with the same clients because then they get familiar, it gets a bit better. But we don't want one person being the only thing for that one client. Because if that one person is sick, they decide not to show up one day, or even just like on the weekends, maybe they don't work weekends. Who does the calling on the weekends, right? So you've got to make sure that you have like, the script shouldn't be so crazy that only one person understands it and they have to go through a load of training. The script should be able to be picked up by anyone at any point. But then like the extra stuff, right? I think making sure that the setter is convicted on that phone call is so important, because it's a sale. Like if they're just like, don't really care about the lead and they're not asking the right questions and they don't, or even worse, they don't believe in the actual service they're trying to book the appointment for, then their show up rate's going to be way lower. They might book the appointment, but their show up rate's going to be way lower. And so having, maybe if your client wants to make like a video for them or something like that they can watch, I think that's absolutely fine. I would also say that most clients think they're different, but they're really not, right? So maybe you want to pander to them a little bit, like, oh, you are different. Yeah, completely get that. Like, and you want to like, just go along with it a little bit, but ultimately you're doing chiropractic service. It's the same thing for everyone, right?
Yeah.
But the really cool thing is if you start being able to link the client results back to the setter, right? So it takes a little bit of work to build this out. But let's say you're in a situation where the setter books in someone for a back treatment, right? And then 2 weeks later, they turn up to it, they fix their back, and then the lead leaves the client a testimonial like, "Thanks so much for fixing my back, right? You changed my life." And then you can share that testimonial with your setter and be like, "Hey, you know that guy you booked in 2 weeks ago that da 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 da? Yeah, so he actually just left his testimonial like because of you, because you phoned fast enough, because you did a good job on the call, and you got him to show up. You've literally changed this guy's life." So like, and if you can put that kind of conviction into your setters, wow, it's insane. But even going a step lower than like not going too far that far, even doing things like having every time your client gets like, if your client sends you a screenshot, "Hey man, thanks so much. My chiropractor is so busy now." Like, blah, 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 send that over to them. "Hey, look, you're really helping this chiropractor build their dream life and that kind of stuff. And also putting it into their, into why it's good for them, right? So it's like, with my team, it's like, "Hey, look, the better we do for our clients, the more referrals we get, the more projects we get, the more work we can give you, the more work we can give your friends and family. Like, let's do this together. Let's work together on this, right?"
Yeah.
And then that lifts people up as well.
Nice. Do you incentivize a number of appointments? Like, hey, you get $1 for every appointment or something like that?
So we don't do that at team follow up because there's so many different moving parts. It would just be way too hard to track. But if I was an agency and I was doing this, I would definitely put some kind of incentive for the number of appointments. I would also be mainly though be putting the incentive for the number of shows. It's like, because anyone can get the appointment as long as you phone fast enough, as long as you follow the systems, you can get loads of people on the phone that will book appointments. But can you actually get them to show up to the appointment? Did you build a good enough connection with them? Do they feel so trusted in you and feel so heard that they come to the appointment, right? So I would be putting more of the commission on the show actually rather than the appointment.
I see. Going back to the reporting, the like back, this guy's back was fixed because of what you did. You said it takes some work to build out. Do you just talk to the client and say, "Hey, if you can send us any testimonials from the actual clients," or?
Yep. So I would recommend having a weekly call with your clients anyway, just to check in. It will really help retention as well. Just that they know, even if the results are bad, they still feel like you're helping them, that kind of stuff. And so on that call, there'll be a few different things I'll be going through. The first thing is like making sure they've tracked all their shows. If they haven't tracked all their shows, it's be like, "Hey, we booked you 10 appointments last week. Can we just quickly go through each one and just, list off who showed, who didn't show?"
Yeah.
Do that with them. And then the other thing I'll be doing is asking them things like, "Have you had any like testimonials or any new reviews come through?" And then again, listing them out and then try and link them back to the appointment seller.
Do you have any data on, let's say 100 leads are generated for a client? Obviously depends on the platform, depends on the offer, etc. How many of those pick up, how many of those schedule, and how many of those show?
So in terms of pickup, I probably have got the data somewhere for that, but I haven't looked at that really because I care about the appointments and the shows, right?
Yeah.
Obviously it depends on, when we say lead, how good the lead is. For example, if you've got a funnel that's got an 8-question qualifying thing in it, like that lead's way more likely to show up because they could not show up straight to actually book the appointment, answer the phone because they've already put so much into it. If it's like a Facebook lead form, a lot of it might be spam information, right? So all that kind of, you've got to be careful of that. But in general, with no deposits, no anything like that, we should be looking at like a 40 to 50% schedule rate and like a 40 to 50% show rate if you do a good enough job of all the reminders and all that kind of stuff.
Got it. That lines up with the data I had as well. So maybe, I'm not as bad as you thought because it was like 40, 45% schedule. And then in general, it was like 2 out of 10 would actually turn into a
2 out of 10. Yeah. So I'm saying
40, so like, let's say there's 4 schedule, 2 will close or show, 2 will show. And
I guess it's about
whenever close.
Well, dude, just think how crazy how more crazy it would have been if you actually locked in the stuff, right? You could be getting like 60, 70% probably. It's crazy.
That's true.
You also had good leads coming through. Also good at lead generation.
Yeah. So talk to us more about the no-show. I know you have a whole checklist, and part of it is the reminders, but I want to focus on what you call like adding the human element, both to the pre-call, the call, and the post-call. How do you do that effectively?
Yeah. The key here is that you don't want to betray someone's trust in the sense of like, if they believe you're a human being texting them, but then all of a sudden it becomes very obvious it's automated, you lose all trust and credibility, and they just probably won't reply to you. We want to get people responding, replying, reading their messages, right? So people aren't going to respond to you if they think you're a bot. They're just like, what's the point?
Yeah.
But if they think you're a human being, then they're much more likely to actually respond to you, right? So things like, if they come through at 3 a.m. and you're texting them at 3 a.m, like as soon as they come in, like, hey, just saw you opted in, thanks so much. Like, obviously it's not real. Like, they know it's not real. Don't treat them like idiots, right?
Yeah.
So you want to be catering your messages like I would always use like an auto confirm or something like that. I'd be like, maybe like auto message in the, like literally say that in the text, and then put, hey, blah blah, thanks so much for filling out opt-in form. We'll get someone to reach out to you as soon as possible, right? And then maybe what we want to do is have another
after hours, or that's during hours as well.
That could be during hours, after hours. I would have it so, just come up with ideas now. So what I do is I'll have it so you could send that straight away, and then for example, like 16 minutes later, right, send out another automation. It's like, hey, Jamie here, just saw you opted in, you know, a little while ago.
Nice.
Just thought I'd wonder what is your biggest pain point right now in terms of ABC, whatever it is, right? If it's overnight, then you can have that same workflow that triggers 16 minutes later, but have it trigger at like 9 a.m. onwards, so 16 minutes past 9, right? You'd like to use these like 16 minutes, 22 minutes, 36 minutes, rather than like the 9 o'clock bang on. Again, it comes across a bit more real, right? And then once you can start doing that, you've got the text coming through. You've got to make sure that you actually respond to the text. So if you ask that question like, hey, what's your biggest pain in this situation, or whatever question you want to ask, and then just no one responds, right? That's even like, people don't really think about it, but like from my point of view, if I was to text someone and I thought was a human being I'm interested in their service, oh, this is the problem, and they just don't send it back for like 24 hours or something, or they just don't text you back at all, it's like, well, I'm not dealing with you guys. Like, I feel it's rude. It's just rude, right? So you got to remember, each of these texts each of these leads you're communicating with is a human being. They're like a real person. They're not just like they're not just a statistic. And so make sure you got that, again, the closed bot, AI bot, whatever you want to do. Have some kind of bot that can respond, or have your VA there to respond. And that's kind of like the pre-text, the before text, like even the after text, even when it comes to reminders, right? Like having closed bot there to respond to things is really important. If people are asking questions, sometimes when you're sending the reminders, people will ask random questions that will come up. Oh, by the way, are you located here? Are you here? Like, where's this? Again, you've got to respond to them. If you don't respond to them, you're going to lose the sale.
Got it. And as far as the actual call goes, what's a giveaway if you're listening to a call that person's probably not going to show? Or like another way to phrase that, what are things that the setters can do to make that as likely as possible that they will show?
For sure. So the first thing I'll talk about is something called the elephant in the room, right? So, and this is the same with sales. It's like if you're doing sales calls or anything like that, right? If me and you were having some kind of conversation, and then you were to give me like a one-word answer, you were to give me a kind of an answer that like it didn't feel like you really were bought in, right? If I was to ask you, oh, so do you understand why this is so important? You're like, yeah, I get it. I kind of get it. Right? Yeah. Some people will just move off that. They go, okay, great, let's put you in for the appointment, right? And they just continue. Yeah. That right there is like a baby elephant, right? And as the call goes on and the whole process, even like after the call, to show up, like that little concern they had in their head that they like weren't really expressing to you, this starts to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And it gets to the point where it's so big, it just crushes you, right? Like, because the elephant's just so big, right? So you've got to make sure, so it's a bit of a graphic thing to say, right? But you got to shoot, like, before the elephant gets that big, as soon as they say, yeah, you know, it's kind of okay, that's when you've got to be like, whoa, hold on. Like, oh, kind of, what do you mean kind of okay? Are you not sure? Are you, and that's where the sales starts to come into it, right? And you've got to get that objection out of them there and then. If they're just giving you like, if you can tell by their tonality, right? I've had calls with people before that they're just like super low energy. I'm asking them questions. They're like, yeah, no, I get it. Okay. Yeah. What time? And I straight up, I'll stop and be like, is everything okay? If I said something, like make a joke out of it, like, if I said something wrong, like laugh. And they're like, oh, no, I'm just having a bad day or whatever it is. Or ask them, are you okay? Is there any problems? And again, like, it's about getting them to actually open up. And so these little cues that I hear are the things that I'm like, right, okay, I know if that person's showing or not. Like, I've actually bought in. Are they asking things like, where are you guys located? Oh, what time is it? You know, are they actually trying to confirm what you're saying to them? They're the main things. Yeah, I'd say they're the
Okay.
main things.
And is there a scenario where you would just like you can tell they're just booking to book and you'd put on the notes like this person probably won't show?
There are, but then again, it's like you should be calling. If you feel that, you should be saying like sometimes you'll call it out and they're like, no, I am going to show, and you're like, and you just don't believe the guy. You're like, all right, well, I'm not going to, I'm not going to keep pushing this guy.
Yeah.
And you book the appointment and you hope for the best.
Yeah.
And the other thing as well is like making sure you don't spend too much time at the beginning of the call, right? So this isn't a cold call, but you need to consider it a cold call still, really, because people forget they've put information into Facebook, especially if you're like not phoning them within 5 minutes. If you're taking like 2 hours to phone them, they've done something completely different now. They've probably put their information into like another 50 things. They have no idea who you are at this point, right?
Yeah.
So you need to make sure you're in a situation where it's like, as soon as they answer the phone, you're like, hey, it's blah, blah. You submit the information about this. There was an advert that had a picture of this in it. Like, just try and remind them. And then once they remember putting their information in, all of a sudden they're like, oh, I know it. And then you've got all the trust, you've got all the time you need. But you've got to get that initial trust in the beginning.
It's funny because the speed to lead totally helps with the trust as well.
Of course.
I was just reaching out for moving quotes, like cross country moving, and I reached out to a local company, like called them on, I think it was Wednesday at like, it was probably like 4:55 or something. So like close to when they would have been ending the day. And they didn't get back to me until Friday at 10 a.m. And I just was already like,
yeah,
I don't think they're the right ones for me.
Yeah, exactly.
And then as far as the follow-up reminders, how many do you send? Is there such thing as too many? And are those all very clearly automated?
Yeah, the reminders, and we actually found this with gym launches, that people start to, if you send too many reminders that are just irrelevant, people start to just like, any text they get from that number, they're just like, oh, they just write it off. They either block your number or they just like mark it as spam or whatever it is, right? So you want to make sure that when you send in the text messages, you're already giving them only information that is like they actually need. Like, right, so like parking information, picture of the front of the building, like as it's coming up to the appointment. 24-hour reminders, like Google Map links, Google Map like screenshot, stuff like that. Like, don't just be like asking random questions. Hey, we saw you got an appointment tomorrow. Just wondering, like, what made you want to book an appointment in the first place? don't ask. Like, just give them the key things, and maybe I would say don't even send them more than like 4 or 5. It depends how far out they're booked, right?
Yeah.
But you really don't want to be, and that's other things as well. You don't want to be booking people further than like 3 to 5 days. That's like the maximum. Otherwise, your show's going to drop. Yeah. So reminders is, maybe 4 to 5 max.
Okay. So the other thing I wanted to ask you about, I have a client of mine that had this really interesting case study happen where in month 1, he didn't have any follow-up services. He didn't implement done for you follow-up services in the second month. He just put in a calendar that people could self-schedule on, and it allowed the office to kind of separate the serious leads from the non-serious leads. These are the numbers. I want you to see if you can tease anything out of this as far as maybe some interesting takeaways. So month 1, leads generated 41, cases started 1. So 1 orthodontic patient. Month 2, 66 leads, 8 cases started. And then month 3 was 46 leads, 6 cases started. And the only difference he made between month 1 and month 2 is implementing a self-scheduling calendar. Have you toyed around with that model, or do you think there's something else going on there?
So just to clarify some of the numbers quickly. So do we have the numbers on how many appointments were booked in, or is it just like leads to actual signed up patients?
I don't have the appointment number.
Okay. Because that would be cool to know, just to see like,
because
that's really what we're trying to see here. It's like, with a self-scheduler, did we get more appointments? Obviously, more cases that's really what we care about. But if we can break down then I can start to understand the bottlenecks and maybe give the advice around that.
Yeah.
And so you're saying in the first month that you said that they weren't doing any follow-up, right? Like nothing.
The client was doing follow-up, but like we all know that even if they tell you they're doing it, they're not.
Exactly. So my just theory from that would be the fact that the client wasn't doing the follow-up. Like if the client was actually following up with leads, then they would have got like it would be because imagine this situation, right? So there's a way for a lead to opt in. There's no way for a lead to self-schedule, right?
Mm.
However, when that lead opts in, they have a receptionist that calls them within 5 minutes and then says, "Hey, we want to put you in for an appointment. Ask them some questions," right?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense for someone to want to self-schedule, but then if someone gets phones within 5 minutes, they'd go like, "No, I'm not booking you an appointment," right? Obviously, the receptionist wasn't following up.
Yeah.
However, this is the case all the time, right? It's always the case. So if you are in that situation where your client says they're following up, let's assume they're not, because they're probably not, then but you don't want to build a calling team, then definitely have a self-scheduler in there. Like otherwise there's literally no way for the person to book in. Like I would 100% recommend that. But I still think that the self-schedule, if that agency you're just talking about was to implement their own calling team, I reckon they could probably double or even triple the number of cases they're getting through, because the self-schedule, we might be getting like 40 leads coming in, right? We might be getting 15 of them self-scheduled in. What happens to them other 25 leads? What's going on with them?
Yeah.
No, they're just being thrown in the waste. There's nothing happening with them.
Yeah.
Even if you get like an extra 10 appointments from that, then you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Okay. So going back to the topic of kind of lead quality, I feel like honestly 2024 has been the year of, I don't just want leads. I want the right leads. And obviously that's a very loaded question, but you've seen literally thousands of leads, thousands of appointments, tens of thousands of leads, thousands of appointments, maybe tens of thousands of appointments probably at that point.
Definitely nice. Yeah.
What have you seen the quality lead generators focus on over others where we just went over the numbers, like 40%, 40 to 50% show, 40 to 50% booking rate is good. Like you do all the best practices and you're going to hit that. What have you seen is the separation from people who are maybe just hitting that and hitting 60 to 70% show and schedule rates?
Yeah, a lot of it just does stem from the ads, right? It's like, if your ads are telling people that they can get a beach ready body in 14 days, right? And then when you speak to the lead and they're not actually like, it's not congruent, then the person's like, "Oh, this isn't the kind of lead I want." It's like, well, because you're looking for people that are like want a quick fix, or so a lot of it comes from the ads. A lot of it also comes from like on the call itself is just making sure that your script isn't. Some people they go too far with it. They want that first call to be like a 15-minute, and it's like, it's not for that. Like, you're going to lose people if you're trying to have like a 15-minute consultation with someone on the phone when you literally phone them out of the blue. It's going to be hard to really keep them and put them in for the appointment and that kind of stuff. So there's a balance between what you got to go for on the call. Because at the same time, if you just phone someone up and you're like, "Hey, we'll put you in," there's no qualifiers. Obviously, that's not going to work either. So really, like, the sweet spot's like 3 qualifiers, I'd say. Like, and only ask the things you need to ask. Unless you're specifically trying to sell them on a deposit, or there's like a reason why you've got to be asking emotional questions, I would literally be asking, like, what's the things you actually need to care about? So there are some of my clients, they'll say, "I want to know if they are over the age of 25. And it's like, okay, so if they're not over, okay, let me do a credit score. That's always a good one. I want to make sure they've got a credit score of at least 700. Okay, cool. So that means if they haven't got a credit score of 700, your client won't work with them. Well, no, my client will still work with them. It's like, well, then you don't need to ask that question, like, because it doesn't matter. So things like that is where you got to get that line right. So it's the ads and the qualification on the course, what I'd say.
I see. What are typically what are those 3 questions end up being qualifying wise?
Massively depends on the niche, right? Like, but usually it's like, just, again, it's stuff that they have to, like, things that literally like disqualification questions, but like they should be, right? So there'll be things like, there was a life insurance company I used to work before, right? And so it's like, do you smoke tobacco? Because if they did, then they wouldn't want to take them on because it gets too complicated, the policy, whatever it is, right? So do you smoke tobacco? If they smoke tobacco, then they can't, literally it's a disqualification. Are they over the age of 65? I think it was like it was a final expense. Are they over the age of 65? They were like the two, they were the 2 for that example, right? So it's like very sharp qualification questions. But we weren't doing deposits, so we were literally just booking in a phone consultation. So it's a very low barrier to entry for them to turn up to the appointment and that kind of stuff.
Got it. what about like capacity to pay questions? Like, hey, our lowest down payment is 400 and the monthly payments 150 a month. Is that going to make sense for you? Do you ever ask stuff like that?
Yeah, sometimes we'd usually ask it in like a slightly different way. So, in terms of the B2B side, quickly, we had a client before that was asking on their on the thing on their calls, do you are you willing to invest at least $3,000 a month into marketing? And everyone, when you ask that phone call, or would ask that question, sorry, would say, well, it depends what the $3,000, that,
Yeah.
and then there's this open up this whole can of worms. It was
Mm.
horrible, right? So I said to the client, I was like, why don't we change it to, hey, how many jobs have you done in the last month? And if they say they've done at least 5 jobs, we
Hmm.
know they've probably got the money to do it, right?
Got it.
If they say they've got less than 5 jobs, then we can do some like little we can lead them down a different route and
Hmm.
not hurt their ego essentially, right? And it works super well. So in terms of B2C, you could be asking things like, great, what do you work full time, right? I know it's a bit vague, but if someone works full time, then if they say, oh no, I'm a student, well then they probably know they can't afford it, right? So there's like little things like that you can think of that can work really, really well.
Okay. Um, and as far as deposits go, I saw you post something recently that's like deposits aren't the fix all. Um, Sometimes they help, sometimes they hurt. What's your current take on that? How much should they be if you're going to do them, and what's the right scenario to use them?
I think too many people use deposits as a band aid for like bad reminders, bad calls, that kind of stuff. Right? They think their clients complain about no shops, and so then they're like, right, we'll start taking deposits. We'll force people to shop. And the problem with that is that first of all, it doesn't make you any better. Like it makes you better at maybe like trying to sell someone on the call, but like you
Yeah.
want to improve the other areas first. And also that if you're like twisting someone's arms to turn up to the appointment, they'll still turn up, but my theory is that the chance of the client getting a sale from that lead is actually less now because they feel like they've been like, if they didn't really want to turn up because you haven't done a great job on the call, the reminders were terrible. They feel like they have to turn up because they've paid a deposit. They turn up. Do you think they're like in the buying frame of mind when they turn up to your client? Probably not. They're probably like kind of pissed off and just like there because that you forced them to pay a deposit.
Yeah.
So I'd always want to make sure that you're trying to do it in better ways. But also deposits can be done well if you do everything else right, and then you're also doing a great job on the call when you want to do the deposits just to secure the deal. That's also fine. I think it just make sure you've got everything else locked in first.
I see. I think it also depends on the niche and
Of
obviously
course.
the type of client. Like if you're the highest end hair salon in Miami and you always take deposits and it's a niche where deposits are very like upfront payment is super common, that makes sense. But if you're the Walmart equivalent dentist that, you know, is
It's also
charging
the
the,
reason why. It's like why is a deposit needed? Like, is there a real reason, or is it
mm,
just to force people to show up? And
yeah,
people are very good at detecting bullshit.
yeah,
So if you've got a genuine reason, so for example, right, we had a thing before with gyms, worked really really well, and what we'd do is we'd say to the gym owner, we'd say to the lead, yeah, great, okay, so because they're a kickboxing gym, they're like, look, we because of like hygiene, everyone has to have their own pair of gloves. So what we do is we just take a $20 deposit, and that just basically buys the gloves for you when you get here, and you
right.
can take the gloves home with you. Like they're your gloves, won't you? But we have to do it because of hygiene. We don't want people sharing gloves, stuff like that. That's like a really good reason. So like
Yeah,
it's like, oh yeah, it makes perfect sense. It's not like some bullshit. Like it's a real thing.
yeah,
And so if you can think of things like that rather than just like, oh, we take deposits to stop you from not. We basically take you deposits to force you to limit your options in the future. Like it's just like a
yeah,
crap thing, you know?
yeah. That's a really good point. So, sorry, going back to the trying to qualify based on maybe capacity to pay, the elephant in the room thing, I think really gets down to the desire, like asking them and calling the bullshit, like you or people detecting that, like if I say, "Tell me why you're looking to get this done," like that's not a terrible question, but also just like tell me a little bit about what's going on might sound a little bit more natural, and then
Yeah.
calling them out if they seem bored and uninterested versus like following the script that you're supposed to do to find out that they're um if they really want it or whatever that your guru told you about. But let's say I'm trying to picture calling an orthodontic client and being like, do you work full time? It just seems a little bit irrelevant to like I feel like that's going to detect it. And I know I put you on the spot. I'm just wondering if we can come up with
No,
a
you're
better
good.
one.
No, it's a great point. You've got to think of things that don't, like, for example, like how many jobs you have in the last month, right? That's like stuff that you can think of. So, for example, I'll try and think of something quickly. So the orthodontist stuff, right? So you speak to someone on the phone, you ask them some qualifying questions. So I might ask something like, "Have you ever had any orthodontic treatment in the past?"
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, I've never done it before. I'm brand new to this.
Yeah.
Okay, well if they say, "Yeah, I have had it before," then you know that they've got
Yeah.
the money. They know how much it is, right?
Mm,
I'm actually quite impressed. I thought that on the spot.
there you go.
So you know, so
You
stuff like
still
that
got
where
it.
yeah, exactly. So stuff like that where it's like it's not obviously the best thing. And look, if it gets down to if you can't think of anything, right? If there's nothing in your niche that works, I'm sure there is, but if there's nothing, then you can just straight up be like, look, I want to be honest with you, Jamie, whatever the name is. I want to be honest with you, Jamie. Uh, a lot of people when they come to the treatment, they think that the price is like $50. And I don't know what the exact price is going to be yet because you need to speak to the dentist, but usually it's like around like at least it's at least usually around $500 for this kind of thing. Just want to make sure I don't want to waste your time. Is that the kind of
Mm,
price you're expecting as well? Saying it like that, and again, put in their benefits like, hey, look, I don't want to waste your time,
yeah.
right? Saying it like that, people are like, oh, and it works way better, you know? So I would try and do the soft qualifiers, like, have you done it before? Do you know what it is? Whatever it is. But then if you really get stuck, you don't know what to ask, then just ask it, but ask it in a way where it makes sense.
Okay. This whole conversation has reminded me of something a mentor of mine called the Walter White principle. Have you watched Breaking Bad?
I started watching it, I never finished it.
Okay. Spoiler alert, I'm about to ruin the end of Breaking Bad for anyone who's listening. So the premise is this guy that's lived his whole life for other people and doesn't have any, like, has never been, had no adventure in his life, gets cancer and decides he's going to sell illegal drugs to fund his cancer treatment and leave something for his parents, or sorry, his family, his wife and kids. And he continues to do more and more illegal things and just like gets himself in a really, really bad situation. And at the very end, he's caught. And the whole time he said to himself, I did this for my family. I did this for my family. I did this for my family. At the very end, they say, they question him. They're like, why did you do this? He's like, well, I said I did it for my family, but really I did it for the sense of adventure. I did it because I had nothing else in my life that I could call my own that I had actually gone out and done. So the Walter White principle is tell the truth. But it's like some of these subtle things you're talking about on the call. It's just like when the caller, something as simple as an appointment setter, having the, I don't want to say audacity, but like the common sense or the common courtesy even to be like, hey, is your day going all right? That can make the difference between the client collecting $0 from that phone call and collecting 10, 20,000, $30,000 from something like
100%.
that.
It's the, what's the word for it? It's like, I'd say emotional intelligence. It's like
Mm,
being able to pick up on these little cues and just if you're speaking to someone and you're like, hey, yeah, I saw in your form that you said you've got a bad back. Tell me a bit about that. Yeah, it just hurts. Like, it just hurts. And having the confidence to be like, it just hurts. Like, there's no, why are we even, no, why are you even worried about it then?
yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean? Like just being able to have the confidence to ask the right question. They're like, oh no, it hurts, but I mean, like, it stops me from that. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, that makes, and then being able to do stuff like that. Like,
Yeah.
and this is by the way where it gets hard to have like just a random Filipino setup to do that. Like, that's where it starts to get a lot more high level and it's not needed all the time. This is like I'm talking like the best of the best here,
Yeah.
right? Most people aren't gonna be able to do this, and you probably don't need it for a $60 chiropractic adjustment. You don't need to have like these advanced skills, right?
Yeah.
But if you are dealing, and this is where like I was saying earlier about how you got to determine what the value is. If you're dealing with personal injury and it's $100,000 case, having someone that can have them nuances in conversation is worth the money because it's going to pay you out
Yeah.
way more if you get that deal. You know.
Yeah. Um, Other thing I was wondering about, do you have data on how many people pick up after like if they don't pick up the first day or the second day, I think you say you call them
I
every day for
actually,
7 days.
yeah, I actually do have data on that. I don't know where I looked at it about 6 months ago because I was looking at the gym launch stuff, and I remember it being like it's something like 40-50% of the appointments are booked on the first day. Like that's always like speed to lead. I know I've gone about it, but it's true.
Yeah.
And then after that, it was like 20% the next day, 10% day two, day three was like 5%, and it was like 1%, 1%, 1%. Like it was just like
Okay.
nothing after day four. It was like crap. And I remember saying to my team, I was like, should we just stop phoning beyond and like we started talking about it. And but what you also got to remember is that it's not just about the results, it's also about what the client thinks of the like if you just say to your client, "Hey, we're going to phone the leads in the first day and then for 3 days after," right?
Mm.
They're like, "Oh, okay, sounds good. Whatever, cool, done." If you're like, "Hey, we're going to phone the first day and then twice a day every day for 7 days," they're like, "Oh, these guys are like." Even if they don't like the expected value is just way higher, right?
Interesting.
Because of what you're saying that. And I still do. We do still do find that we get them few extra leads coming, like appointments coming through the end of the 7 days as well. Beyond 7 days, it just starts to like get silly. It's not worth it anymore. But I still think up to day 7, it's still worth it.
Okay. That's actually really good to know because I never did the data myself, but it seemed like even higher for us. It seemed like 80% on day one.
Yeah, it's a big amount.
And I know people who they literally just discard all the leads if they don't book within the first 3 days. They're just like, there's no point. And
Yeah,
obviously database reactivation and email follow-ups and all that are certainly a great idea. And every once in a while we'd have somebody reach back out like 6 months later and be like, hey, is this still a thing? And what happens is
it
kind of
also
like,
depends on the niche as well,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like,
100%.
yeah,
Like you were saying, when people have a bad day or like a bad week with their call center that they're trying to do themselves and they reach out to you, same thing with like any purchase decision. It usually starts with this annoyance in my life happened one too many times and now I'm ready to do it again. And
yeah,
if the benefit of doing significant amount of follow-up, even if that person never responds to you in the beginning, is that you're going to be top of mind in 6 months when the annoying thing happens again and they want to make the decision.
yeah, exactly that, man.
So let's close out here. Tell us what the experience is like if someone joins Call Center Mastery. How much is it? If you want to share that here, or if you want to share it on the call, you can. And then how does the process work? And how fast can somebody expect to have this fully built out?
Yeah, for sure. So I don't mind going through the pricing now. Just please bear in mind that if you watch this and it's like however long later, the price is going to go up. So like
Yeah.
it's literally still the price is still quite low because I'm just trying to get as many agencies in it as possible. I generally know I've got something that can help people. I'm extremely convicted on it now, and so just trying to get people in it. So it's literally $1,000 a month for the first 3 months, and then it's $497 a month after that if you want to continue.
Nice.
The price does fluctuate. It does change. It was up a little bit higher before that. I've dropped it down again just to get more people in. That kind of stuff. So yeah, please don't moan at me if the price is different when you speak to me. And then when it comes to what people get when they join, right? So first thing is that we have a full school community we've got everything laid out. I've spent I don't know what estimate of hours I've put into it, but a lot of hours in literally making videos step by step. Click this button, go high level snapshots, setting up scripts, Slack, how we do the speed to these stuff, all the reporting, Google Sheets, Google Data Studio. Everything is built out where it's pretty much automated. And even when it comes to the hiring, like the LinkedIn funnel, we have how we use Hubstaff, how we pay, everything when it comes to the posts we make, what do we look for, how do we interview, how do we filter applicants, like all the training. We've even got a whole training module just for your appointment settings and stuff like that as well. So everything in there is laid out, all blueprints, everything's got templates, everything's plug and play. Myself, I have a call at this moment. It may change. I have a call every single day with all of my students. So every day, 12 p.m. Eastern. It currently is Monday to Friday. You get direct access to me. Come ask me questions. I can help you build out your call center. Then my team, my call center manager who runs the entire call center for me, they have a call twice a week, and then my tech person has a call twice a week to help with all the technical stuff as well.
Very
So
cool.
really, this is people that come in, it's very, everything's there. Everything is there to make sure that you can build out a call center. And again, there's, if you want to see them, there's testimonials, all that kind of stuff as well. It will really help you get better results for your clients.
And that price is laughable. Like that price is worth having the hiring funnel.
It's even just a snapshot alone. Like even just a snapshot, like the power dial, how do you do like that? And it's literally people. I think I've had some people probably even get turned off by that. Just be real, right? People are just like that. They're a little bit worried that because the price is low. But generally, it's I only launched this like 4 or 5 months ago, and I've got a load of social proof, and I've launched my ads, and my ads are going well. But I haven't scaled my ads up yet. I'm still just trying to get as many people and as much social proof as possible. And then when I start scaling the ads and I start getting more and more full, then I will put the price up. But for now, it's like I want even the newer agency owners to be able to get involved in this. It's something that is just a win-win for everyone. And I think holding it back from people, I just don't think it's right to do at the moment.
Yeah. Well, Arin, thanks for coming on, man. Any final words of advice for someone besides, obviously go click on the link below and sign up for a call with you? Any final words of advice for follow-up agency owners in 2024? Anything you want to say?
Yeah, man. Final thing I'll say is that the market is evolving, and don't think that just generating leads is enough anymore. It's not. It's some people, they have spoken to me and they're like, this call center thing, seems a little bit complicated. I'm just going to tell my clients they can do the calling. I'm going to coach my clients on how to do the calling. I'm just going to do the thing is that that's the easy route, and everyone does the easy route. And that's where the competition sits because it's easy. So if you can actually just like put the effort in, build the calling team, do the calling for your clients. First of all, the market's starting to expect that anyway. That's where the market's evolving. But also it differentiates you from all the 16-year-old kids with the laptops that are just like the kids that are just starting out. Like you can demolish them, right? Yeah. So don't sleep on it. Like you need it. Trust me. And I can help you build it. I assure you.
And your sales calls will go so much easier, I promise you.
That as well, man. It's not just the booking for the clients. It's not just like getting them better results and improving your retention. When you're on the sales call and you're like, all these other agencies that are just generating leads and they've got some AI thing, like, I've actually got human callers that like phone your leads within 5 minutes. They're like, it's like it increases your. I had one guy that like he went from it was doing like $8,000 a month or something, and the next month he did like 20 something just because of all the new sales he got from spin. How to say that, right? It's insane.
Very cool. And the profitability on that can be insane with the environment we have today where you can hire anywhere in the world, pay $5 an hour and rent those out, give that appointment setter the most amazing life, and your clients a much better quality of life as well. So,
and you also, it's not just about you make more money from your client. Your LTV goes up, not just because of their retention, but because you can charge an extra $500 to $1,000 a month for the call center service, right? And it won't cost you probably about 100, maybe 200 to actually fulfill on that. Obviously, it depends on so many things, but on average, so it's just a win-win-win for everyone, really.
So cool. Arin, thanks so much. I'm sure plenty of people will be seeing you on a sales call real soon, and we'll see you back on the podcast next year.
Yeah, love to speak to everyone. Thanks, Keaton. Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate you, dude.
Take care.